Don't get out of bed tomorrow without doing this first. I'm serious, because what you do in the first few moments after you wake up determines more than you realize. It determines your focus, it determines your direction, and most importantly, it determines what you allow to take control of your day. I know that sounds simple, but from the side I came from, those first moments were never ignored. I wasn't always on this side, warning people. There was a time when I was deeply involved in the occult, trained to understand patterns, timing, and how influence actually begins. And one of the most strategic moments we were taught to watch was when a person wakes up, because in that moment, your mind is open, not fully guarded, not fully focused. You're coming out of rest, but you haven't yet taken control. And that small window is where everything can begin. I remember being taught very clearly, if they don't take control immediately, something else will. Not always something's obvious, not something dramatic, but small things, a negative thought, a feeling of heaviness, a sense of confusion or lack of direction, things that seem normal, but shape everything that follows. Because once your day starts in the wrong direction, it becomes easier to stay in that direction. And most people don't even realize it's happening. They wake up, check their phone, start thinking, reacting, moving, but they never take control. And because they never take control, they spend the rest of the day responding instead of leading. That's the strategy, not to overwhelm you instantly, but to set the tone early. Because if the beginning is influenced, the rest follows more easily. Now, here's the truth that changed everything for me when I left that life. You don't wait to see how your day will go. You decide it before it begins. And there is one simple thing you can say immediately when you wake up that shifts your position completely. Not something long, not something complicated, but something direct that puts you in control before anything else tries to. In the next chapter, I'm going to show you why most people lose control in the morning without realizing it, and how that one mistake affects everything that follows. Now, this is the part most people never pay attention to, but it's the exact moment where control is either taken or lost, the first few minutes after you wake up, because in that moment, your mind hasn't fully stabilized yet. You're not fully focused. You're not fully guarded. You're in between states. And that's what makes it important. When I was in the occult, we were taught not to wait until someone was fully alert. We targeted the transition because transitions are where people are most unguarded, and waking up is one of the biggest transitions you go through every single day. Now, here's the mistake most people make. They wake up and immediately react. They grab their phone. They check messages. They start thinking about problems. They replay things from yesterday. And within seconds, their mind is no longer clear. It's occupied, pulled in different directions. And once that happens, control is already slipping, because instead of choosing your focus, you've allowed your focus to be chosen for you. I remember clearly, this was one of the easiest moments to influence, not because something strong was happening, but because nothing was being resisted. There was no intention, no direction, just automatic reaction. And automatic reaction is where control is lost. Now listen carefully. The issue is not what you do later in the day. The issue is how you start, because the beginning sets the pattern. If your day starts with distraction, you stay distracted. If it starts with pressure, you carry pressure. If it starts without control, you spend the day trying to regain it. That's why mornings matter more than people realize. Because you're not just waking up physically, You're setting your mental position. And if that position is not intentional, it becomes reactive by default. Now, here's the key you need to understand. You don't need a long routine. You don't need something complicated. You just need to take control before anything else does. Before the phone, before the thoughts, before the distractions. You decide your position. That's the shift. Because once you take control at the beginning, everything else becomes easier to manage. You're no longer trying to fix your day, you're leading it. And in the next chapter, I'm going to give you the exact words you should say the moment you wake up. Something simple, direct, and powerful enough to set your entire day in the right direction. Now, this is the moment that changes everything, not later in your day, not when problems show up, but right when you wake up, before you move, before you check anything, before your mind starts wandering, you take control immediately. Because from what I saw, whoever takes control first sets the direction. And if you don't take that position, something else will. So I'm going to give you something simple, something direct, something you can use the moment your eyes open. Say this: today, I take full control of my mind, my focus, and my direction. Nothing will distract me. Nothing will shift me. Nothing will take me off course. I remain clear. I remain steady. I remain in control from the beginning to the end of this day. Now listen carefully. This is not about repeating words without thinking. This is about setting your position before anything else tries to. Because once your position is set, everything that doesn't match it becomes easier to recognize. You don't have to figure things out later. You've already decided where you stand. I remember clearly this kind of response, when done immediately, changed everything. Not because it was loud, not because it was emotional, but because it was early. It happened before distraction, before confusion, before influence had a chance to enter. And that's what made it effective. Because once something else enters first, you're already reacting. But when you go first, you're leading. Now, here's something very important you need to understand. You don't need to feel motivated for this to work. You don't need to feel strong. You don't need to feel anything at all. You just need to say it and mean it enough to align with it, because control is not about emotion. It's about decision. And this is your first decision of the day. Now imagine this. You wake up, and before anything else happens, your mind is already clear. Your focus is already set. Your direction is already decided. So when distractions try to come, they don't pull you the same way. When pressure tries to appear, it doesn't land the same way, because you're not trying to take control anymore. You already have it. That's the difference. And the more you do this, the faster it becomes, until eventually you don't even think about it. You wake up and you're already in control. And in the next chapter, I'm going to show you what happens if you skip this step, and why most people end up losing control without even realizing when it happened. Now, this is the part most people never connect, because they don't realize when the shift actually happens. They think control is lost later in the day. When something goes wrong, when pressure builds, when things don't go as planned. But from what I saw, control is usually lost much earlier, quickly, subtly, right at the beginning. When someone wakes up and does nothing to take control, they don't notice the effect immediately. Everything feels normal, routine, familiar. But small things begin to stack. A thought comes in, and it's accepted. A distraction appears, and it's followed. A feeling shows up, and it's allowed to settle. And because nothing is being challenged, everything is being accepted. That's how it starts. not with something big, but with small moments of agreement. I remember clearly, this was one of the easiest ways influence would build, not by forcing anything, but by letting things enter without resistance. Because if the beginning is unguarded, the rest becomes easier. Now, here's what that looks like in real life. You wake up and check your phone immediately. Now your focus is no longer yours. It's already pulled outward. You start thinking about things you need to do, things you didn't finish, things that might go wrong. Now pressure begins to build. You feel slightly off, slightly distracted, slightly unfocused. Nothing extreme, but enough. And as the day continues, that slight shift becomes stronger. Decisions become less clear. Reactions become quicker. Focus becomes weaker. And by the time something noticeable happens, you are already deep into the pattern. And that's when people say, I don't know why my day feels off. But the truth is, the day didn't go off track later. It started off track. That's the part most people miss. Now listen carefully. This is not about avoiding every problem. It's about not giving problems an early advantage. Because when you skip that first step, you're not starting from a position of control. You're starting from a position of reaction. And once you're reacting, everything feels heavier. Everything feels harder. Everything takes more effort to manage. But when you take control at the beginning, you remove that disadvantage completely. You're not catching up. You're already ahead. That's the difference. So don't underestimate those first few moments because they don't just start your day, they shape it. And in the next chapter, I'm going to show you how to lock this in as a daily habit. So you never lose control at the beginning again, no matter how your day starts. Now, this is where everything becomes permanent, because doing this once or twice won't change your life, but turning it into a habit will. And from what I learned, habits are what determine outcomes, not intentions. You can intend to stay focused, you can intend to stay in control, but if your habits don't support that, you'll always fall back into reaction. That's why this step is so important. You're not just saying something in the morning, you're building a pattern that becomes automatic. When I was in the occult, we didn't rely on one time moments, we relied on repetition. Because repetition removes effort, the more something is repeated, the less thought it requires, until eventually it becomes your default. That's what you're creating here. So, how do you lock this in? You simplify it. You don't add 10 different things. You don't complicate the process. You make it the first thing you do every single day before your phone, before your thoughts, before anything else. You say those words immediately, even if you feel tired, even if you don't feel like it, even if your mind tries to skip it, because consistency is more important than feeling. Now, here's the key: attach it to waking up, not to a specific time, not to a mood, but to the moment your eyes open. That way, it becomes automatic. Wake up, speak, take control, still, repeatable, effective. I remember clearly this is how patterns were built and maintained, not through effort, but through consistency. Because once something becomes your default, you don't have to think about it anymore. You don't have to remind yourself. You don't have to force it. It just happens. Now imagine that every single morning, without thinking, you wake up and immediately take control. No delay, no hesitation, no distraction. That means every day starts the same way: clear, focused, directed. And when your days start like that consistently, your outcomes begin to change, not suddenly, but steadily, because you're no longer reacting to life, you're leading it. Now listen carefully. The goal is not to be perfect. The goal is to be consistent. If you miss a day, you don't stop. You return the next day. If you forget once, you correct it the next time. Because what matters is the pattern over time. And the longer you stay consistent, the stronger that pattern becomes. Until eventually, there is no version of your day where you don't start in control. And in the next chapter, I'm going to show you what happens when you reach that level, when control becomes automatic and nothing in your day is able to shift you the way it used to. Now, this is where everything begins to change, not suddenly, but in a way that becomes undeniable over time. Because once you stay consistent with this, once you take control every single morning without fail, something starts to shift inside you, not just in your routine, but in how you respond to everything. When I was in the occult, there was a clear difference between people who were inconsistent and those who had built strong internal patterns. The inconsistent ones were easy. Some days they were focused, other days they weren't. Some moments they were clear, other moments they reacted. And that inconsistency created openings. But the ones who became consistent, the ones who responded the same way every single day, they became difficult, not because nothing ever came their way, but because nothing stayed. That's the level you begin to step into when control becomes your default. Let me show you what that actually looks like. You wake up and take control automatically, no hesitation. So when your day begins, you're already clear. Now, when distractions appear, they don't pull you the same way because your focus was already set. When pressure shows up, you don't react emotionally because you're already steady. When unexpected situations happen, you don't lose direction because you already decided it at the beginning. That's the shift. You're no longer trying to regain control throughout the day. You're maintaining the control you already established, and that changes everything. Now listen carefully. This doesn't mean your day will be perfect. It doesn't mean nothing will happen, but it means nothing will take you off course the way it used to, because you're not starting from a neutral position anymore. You're starting from a position of control, and that position carries through your entire day. I remember seeing this clearly. People who built strong daily patterns didn't need to fight as much, not because they were stronger, but because fewer things reached them in a way that mattered. That's what consistency does. It reduces what you have to deal with because things don't grow, they don't settle, they don't take hold. Now, here's the most important part. Once this becomes your default, you don't think about it anymore. You don't question it. You don't analyze it. You just live from it. You wake up, you take control, and your day follows that direction every time. And when that happens, you stop feeling like you're constantly trying to fix things. You stop feeling like you're always catching up. You stop feeling like your day is controlling you because now you are in control of it. And in the final chapter, I'm going to show you what your life looks like when you stay in this position long term, and why this simple habit becomes one of the most powerful shifts you can ever make. Now, this is the final truth, and it's something most people never fully reach, not because it's impossible, but because they don't stay consistent long enough to experience it. Because what starts as a simple habit becomes a completely different way of living when you take control every single morning, without fail, without delay. Your days stop feeling random. They stop feeling unpredictable. They stop feeling like something you have to get through. Instead, they become directed, intentional, steady. When I was in the occult, There was something very clear. People who didn't control their beginnings were controlled by their outcomes. But the ones who mastered their starting point, they changed everything that followed, not instantly, but consistently. And consistency always wins over time. Let me show you what this looks like when it becomes your lifestyle. You wake up and control is automatic. There's no hesitation, no distraction, no delay. Your mind is already clear. Your focus is already set. Your direction is already decided. So when the day unfolds, you're not reacting to it. You're moving through it with intention. Things that used to throw you off don't hit the same way. Distractions that used to pull you in lose their effect. Moments that used to create pressure don't stay as long, not because life stopped happening, but because you stopped giving it control. That's the shift. Now listen carefully. This is not about perfection. You will still have moments. You will still have challenges, but they don't define your day anymore because your day was already defined at the beginning. And once that becomes your pattern, something powerful happens. You stop living in reaction. You stop adjusting to everything around you. You stop feeling like you're always trying to regain control because you never lost it. That's the difference. And over time, this simple habit begins to affect more than just your mornings. It affects your decisions, your focus, your discipline, your results because everything is now built on a controlled beginning. Now, here's the final thing I want you to understand. This is not about the words alone, it's about what those words represent: a decision, a position, a commitment to take control before anything else does. And once you live from that place, nothing easily moves you, nothing easily distracts you, nothing easily takes you off course, because every single day you started ahead, you started aligned, you started in control. And when that becomes your lifestyle, you're no longer hoping for better days, you're creating them one morning at a time.